The world tilted when Commander Diego Alvarez rejected me in front of the entire squad, his voice like a blade slicing through my chest. "You're not cut out for this, Kale," he'd said, his dark eyes cold, unyielding, as if I were nothing more than a speck of dust on his polished boots. I was 24, a rookie in the elite coastal vanguard, and I'd poured my soul into proving myself only to be discarded like a broken tool. But now, 6 months later, Diego's gaze follows me everywhere, burning with an intensity that makes my skin prickle. He's the untouchable leader of our paramilitary unit, a man forged in discipline and secrets. Yet he's unraveling, chasing me through the fog-drenched streets of San Francisco, his desperation a stark contrast to the rejection that still stings. What changed in him? And why does my heart still race when he's near? My name is Cale Washington, and I never thought I'd be the one to break an alpha like Diego. Growing up in Oakland, I learned early that survival meant hiding parts of myself. Being black and gay in a world that often rejected both wasn't easy. But I fought my way into the Vanguard, a private coastal defense force protecting California's shores from rising threat smugglers, rogue militias, and the chaos of a warming world. At 24, I'm lean, quick, and stubborn, with short dreadlocks and a guarded heart. Diego, 28, is the opposite, a broad-shouldered Latino with a short beard, all sharp edges and commanding presence. His heritage a mix of Mexican and Puerto Rican fire. He's the kind of leader who could silence a room with a glance. But now, those glances are fixed on me. It started on a rainy night in the Mission District. I was off duty, nursing a beer at a dimly lit bar called The Anchor, its walls plastered with old nautical maps. The Vanguard had been my life for a year, but Diego's rejection had left me questioning everything. I'd been too soft, he'd said, too emotional for the brutal work of protecting the coast. Yet, as I sat there, the door swung open, and there he was, Diego, soaked from the rain, his dark hair plastered to his forehead, eyes locking onto mine like a missile finding its target. "Cale," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. "We need to talk." I froze, my grip tightening on the bottle. "You said enough 6 months ago, Commander." My tone was sharp, but my pulse betrayed me, hammering in my throat. He didn't move closer, but the air between us crackled, heavy with something unspoken. He looked haunted, not the Diego I knew, the one who led with iron certainty. This Diego was fraying at the edges, and I didn't know why. He sat across from me, uninvited, his presence filling the booth. "I was wrong," he said, the words rough, like they'd been dragged out of him. "About you. About everything." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Wrong. You humiliated me in front of the squad. Diego, you made me feel like nothing." My voice cracked, and I hated it. I hated how much his words still hurt, how much I still wanted his approval, his respect, maybe more. His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he'd walk away. Instead, he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I pushed you away because I was scared, Cale. Scared of what you made me feel." His eyes searched mine, raw and unguarded, and my breath caught. Was this a trick? A game? Or was the untouchable Commander Diego Alvarez admitting something I never dared to imagine? That night, he didn't explain further. He left me sitting there, heart pounding, questions swirling like the fog outside. But it wasn't the end. Diego started showing up everywhere outside my apartment, in the Tenderloin, at my training sessions, even at the pier where I went to clear my head. Each time, his presence was a storm, pulling me in and tearing me apart. I wanted to hate him, to shut him out. But every look, every word, chipped away at my resolve. The Coastal Vanguard wasn't just a job. It was a brotherhood, a family forged in danger. We patrolled the Bay Area's waters, stopping smugglers who used the rising seas to their advantage. Diego was our leader, the alpha who never faltered until now. Rumors started circulating among the squad. Whispers about Diego's late-night visits to my neighborhood. About the way he watched me during drills. "What's going on with you and the commander?" my friend Lena asked one day, her sharp eyes narrowing. Lena, 26, a fierce Asian-American sniper, had a knack for seeing through bullshit. I shrugged, but my silence only fueled her curiosity. One night, during a high-stakes mission off the coast of Half Moon Bay, everything changed. We were tracking a smuggler's vessel, a sleek black boat cutting through the choppy waves. Diego had assigned me to the recon team, a role I'd been denied after his rejection. I was determined to prove him wrong, to show I wasn't the weak link he'd claimed. But as we boarded the enemy ship, chaos erupted. Gunfire, shouting, the sting of salt in the air. I took a risk, diving into the fray to protect a wounded teammate. And when the dust settled, Diego was there, his face pale, his hands gripping my shoulders. "You could have died," he said, his voice shaking. "Kale, you can't." He stopped, his breath ragged. And I saw it then, fear. Not for the mission, but for me. His hands lingered. And for a moment, the world narrowed to just us. The ocean roaring around us. The weight of his touch grounding me. "Why do you care now?" I demanded, pulling away. "You didn't care when you threw me out." "I never stopped caring," he said, his voice raw. "I rejected you to protect you. From me. From this." He gestured to the chaos around us. But his eyes said something else, something deeper. More dangerous. I didn't know what to believe. Diego was a fortress, a man who'd built walls no one could breach. Yet here he was, crumbling before me, chasing me like a man possessed. And despite everything, I felt it to the pull, the heat, the undeniable truth that I'd never stopped wanting him, even after he broke me. As we returned to base, the squad buzzing with adrenaline, I made a choice. I couldn't keep running from this. From him. Whatever Diego was hiding, whatever had changed in him, I needed answers. And maybe, just maybe, I needed him too. The days after the Half Moon Bay mission were a blur of tension and unspoken questions. Diego's confession that he'd rejected me to protect Mahung in the air like smoke. Impossible to ignore, but too hazy to grasp. I wanted to confront him, to demand the full truth. But the Vanguard's relentless schedule kept us moving. Mission after mission, with no room for personal battles. San Francisco's fog was thicker than usual that week, cloaking the city in a ghostly veil. I lived in a cramped apartment in the Tenderloin, a neighborhood of neon signs and late-night noise, where I could blend into the chaos. But Diego found me there too. I'd catch glimpses of him, his broad silhouette leaning against a street lamp outside my building, his dark eyes tracking me as I walked home from the pier. It wasn't just surveillance. It was something deeper, something that made my chest tighten with equal parts anger and longing. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I spotted him across the street from the Anchor, his leather jacket slick with rain, his gaze fixed on the bar's foggy windows. I stormed out, the cold biting my skin, and faced him. "What do you want?" "Diego." My voice was sharp, cutting through the drizzle. "You can't just stalk me like this." He didn't flinch, but his eyes softened, a crack in his usual armor. "I'm not stalking you, Kale. I'm trying to fix this." His voice was low, almost lost in the hum of the city. "I messed up. I know that." "Fix it." I laughed, the sound brittle. "You don't get to undo what you did. You made me feel worthless." My hands clenched into fists, and I hated how my voice trembled, betraying the hurt I'd buried for months. Diego stepped closer, his boots splashing in a puddle. "You were never worthless. Not to me." His words were quiet but heavy, like they carried the weight of something he'd held back for too long. "I pushed you away because I couldn't handle how much you meant to me. How much you still do." My breath caught, and I took a step back, my back hitting the rough brick wall of the bar. "You don't get to say that now," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. His nearness was overwhelming. His scent leather and salt, and something uniquely Diego clouding my thoughts. I wanted to shove him away, to hold on to my anger. But my body betrayed me, leaning toward him like a magnet. He didn't touch me, but his eyes held mine, raw and unguarded. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Kale. Not yet. I just need you to know I'm not the man I was 6 months ago. Before I could respond, Lena's voice cut through the moment. Kale, you okay? She stood at the bar's entrance, her sharp eyes flicking between me and Diego. Her hand rested on her hip, close to the knife she always carried. A silent warning. I'm fine, I said, breaking eye contact with Diego. Just talking. Lena raised an eyebrow but didn't press. We've got a briefing in an hour. Don't be late. She disappeared back into the bar, leaving us in the rain-soaked silence. Diego watched her go, then turned back to me. I'll prove it to you, Kale. I'm not giving up. He walked away, his figure swallowed by the fog, and I was left with a racing heart and 1,000 questions. The briefing that night was tense. The Vanguard had intercepted intel about a major smuggling operation moving through the Golden Gate, a shipment of illegal tech that could destabilize the coast's defenses. Diego led the meeting with his usual precision, but I felt his eyes on me, lingering longer than necessary. The squad noticed 2 whispers and sidelong glances followed me as we geared up for the mission. We deployed at midnight, our boats cutting through the dark waters of the bay. I was assigned to Diego's team, a decision that raised eyebrows but felt deliberate. As we approached the Targeta, a hulking freighter anchored just beyond the bridge, the air grew thick with anticipation. Diego's voice crackled through my earpiece, steady but laced with something else. Kale, stay close. I've got your back. I didn't respond, focusing instead on the task: infiltrate, secure the cargo, neutralize threats. But as we boarded the freighter, the plan unraveled. The smugglers were ready for us, armed with tech we hadn't anticipated, drones that swarmed like angry wasps, firing stun rounds. I dove behind a crate, my pulse racing, and Diego was there, shielding me as a drone's shot grazed his arm. Stay down, he barked, but his eyes were wild, not with anger, but with fear for me. It was the same look I'd seen on the last mission, and it shook me to my core. We fought our way through, disabling the drones and securing the cargo. But the cost was high. 2 squad members were injured, and Diego's arm was bleeding through his sleeve. As we retreated to the boats, he grabbed my wrist, pulling me aside. You're reckless, Kale, he said, his voice low and urgent. You can't keep throwing yourself into danger like that. I was doing my job, I shot back, yanking my arm free. You don't get to play protector now, Diego. Not after everything. His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Instead, he reached out, his fingers brushing my jaw, a fleeting touch that sent a jolt through me. I'm trying, Kale, he whispered. I'm trying to be better. I didn't know what to say, so I turned away, the weight of his touch lingering long after we returned to base. Diego was breaking every rule he'd ever lived by, chasing me with a desperation I didn't understand. And the worst part, I wanted to let him. The freighter mission left the Vanguard on edge, the squad grappling with the close call and the injuries. I couldn't shake Diego's touch, his words, the way he'd risked himself for me. But trust was a fragile thing, and he'd shattered mine once before. I wasn't ready to let him back in, no matter how much my heart ached for it. Back at the Vanguard's base in Sausalito, a sleek compound overlooking the bay, I threw myself into training, hoping to drown out the noise in my head. The gym was my sanctuary, weights clanging, sweat dripping, the rhythm of exertion a temporary escape. But even there, Diego found me. He stood in the doorway one morning, his silhouette framed by the dawn light, his arm bandaged from the mission. Kale, he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Can we talk? Off the record. I set down the barbell, wiping sweat from my brow. You don't get to decide when we're off the record. Commander. My tone was cold, but my resolve was slipping. He looked different, vulnerable, almost human, not the untouchable alpha I'd idolized. He stepped closer, his boots echoing on the concrete floor. I owe you the truth. All of it. He hesitated, then continued, his voice low. When I rejected you, it wasn't about your skills. You were good, better than most. It was about me. I was falling for you, and I couldn't let that happen. My heart stopped. Falling for me. The words felt like a punch, stealing my breath. You expect me to believe that? I said, crossing my arms. You humiliated me. Diego. You made it personal. I know, he said, his eyes dropping to the floor. I thought pushing you away would keep us both safe. The Vanguard doesn't tolerate this. He gestured between us, his voice tight. Relationships. Feelings. Especially not between a commander and a rookie. I was trying to protect you, but I was also protecting myself. I stared at him, the pieces falling into place. Diego wasn't just an alpha. He was a man trapped by his own rules, by the expectations of a world that demanded perfection. But that didn't erase the pain he'd caused. You don't get to hide behind duty. I said, you broke me, Diego. And now you think you can just, what? Fix it with a confession. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said, his voice raw. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. I see you, Kale. Every day, I see you. And it's killing me to stay away. The air between us was electric, charged with everything we weren't saying. I wanted to scream at him, to push him away, but I also wanted to close the distance, to feel his warmth again. Before I could decide, Lena burst into the gym, her face grim. We've got a problem. New intel on the smugglers. They're planning a retaliation strike. The moment shattered, and Diego slipped back into commander mode, his face hardening. Briefing in 10, he said, but his eyes lingered on me, a silent promise that this wasn't over. The briefing revealed a chilling plan. The smugglers were targeting the Vanguard supply lines, aiming to cripple our operations. Diego assigned me to a covert recon mission, a dangerous job that put me at the heart of the enemy's territory. I didn't miss the iron I'd rejected me for being too soft. Yet now he was trusting me with this. The mission took us to a derelict warehouse in Oakland, its walls crumbling under years of neglect. We moved in silence, shadows among shadows. But the smugglers were waiting. An ambush erupted, gunfire, smoke, the sharp crack of explosives. I fought alongside Lena, my training kicking in, but my eyes kept finding Diego, his movements precise, deadly, yet always angled to keep me in his sight. When a smuggler lunged at me, knife gleaming, Diego was there in an instant, tackling the man to the ground. Blood streaked his face as he pinned the attacker, his eyes wild with protective fury. Kale, get back, he shouted, but I was already moving, covering him as another smuggler advanced. We barely made it out, the warehouse collapsing behind us in a blaze of fire and debris. As we regrouped, panting and bruised, Diego grabbed my arm, pulling me aside. You're going to get yourself killed, he said, his voice shaking. I can't lose you, Kale. Then stop pushing me away, I snapped, my chest heaving. You can't keep doing this, saving me, chasing me, then acting like I'm just another soldier. You're not just another soldier, he said, his voice breaking. You never were. For a moment, we stood there, the world burning around us. And I saw the man behind the commander, the man who was fighting for me, even if he didn't know how. I wanted to believe him, to let go of the pain. But trust was a long road, and we were only at the start. The warehouse mission left scars, some on our bodies, others deeper. Diego's words echoed in my mind. You're not just another soldier. But what was I to him? A mistake he regretted. A temptation he couldn't resist. I didn't have answers, and the vanguard's relentless pace gave me no time to find them. We were on high alert, the smugglers' retaliation looming like a storm on the horizon. I started noticing changes in Diego. He was still the alpha commander, barking orders and leading with precision. But there was a new softness in the way he spoke to me, a hesitation that hadn't been there before. During drills, he'd linger nearby, offering quiet corrections instead of sharp critiques. At briefings, his eyes sought mine, holding a moment longer than necessary. The squad noticed Tulina's knowing smirks, the curious glances from others. It was dangerous, this shift, in a world where fraternization could end careers. One night, after a grueling patrol, I found myself at the pier near Fort Mason, the city's lights glittering across the bay. I needed space to think, to untangle the mess of feelings Diego had stirred. But as I leaned against the railing, the familiar sound of boots on wood made my heart skip. "Diego, you shouldn't be out here alone," he said, his voice low, almost gentle. He stood beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his body. But he didn't touch me. Not yet. I needed air, I said, staring at the water. "And you're not exactly helping with that." My tone was sharp, but there was no real venom in it. I was tired of fighting him, fighting myself. He let out a breath, almost a laugh. "I know I'm making this harder. I don't know how to do this. Kale, I've spent my life building walls, keeping people out. But you," he turned to me, his eyes dark and searching. "You got through. And it terrifies me." My chest tightened, and I forced myself to meet his gaze. "You hurt me, Diego. You made me feel like I didn't belong. How do I trust you now?" He stepped closer, his hand hovering near mine on the railing. "You don't have to trust me yet. But let me show you. Let me earn it." Before I could respond, an explosion rocked the city behind us, a plume of fire rising from the direction of the vanguard's base. Alarms blared, and Diego's radio crackled with urgent reports in attack, coordinated and brutal. We ran. The moment shattered, adrenaline flooding my veins. The base was chaos when we arrived, smoke billowing, shouts echoing, the smell of burning metal thick in the air. The smugglers had struck, targeting our weapons cache. Diego took command, rallying the squad, but his eyes kept finding me, ensuring I was safe. I fought alongside him, my focus razor sharp, but every move felt like a dance. Our movements synchronized in a way that went beyond training. When the fighting stopped, the base was in ruins, but we'd held the line. Diego found me in the aftermath, his face streaked with soot, his eyes wild with relief. "You're okay," he said, his voice breaking as he pulled me into a hug. It was brief, desperate, but it felt like a promise. We didn't talk about it. Not then. There was too much to door building, debriefing, mourning the losses. But that night, as the squad gathered around a makeshift fire, Diego sat beside me, his shoulder brushing mine. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes in a world where every touch was a risk. Lena caught my eye, her expression unreadable. Later, as we cleaned our gear, she cornered me. "You and Diego," she said, her voice low. "It's more than just tension, isn't it?" I hesitated, then nodded. "I don't know what it is, Lena, but it's something." She sighed, her tough exterior softening. "Be careful, Kale. The Vanguard's no place for love. But if anyone can make it work, it's you." Her words stayed with me as the days passed. Diego and I didn't talk about the pier, the hug, the unspoken promises. But he was there, always checking my gear, covering me in drills, watching me with an intensity that made my skin burn. I wanted to believe in him, to let myself fall. But the fear of betrayal lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. Then came the final Miss Iona strike against the smuggler's stronghold. A fortified compound in the hills above Santa Cruz. It was all or nothing. A chance to end the threat once and for all. Diego assigned me to his side. A move that raised eyebrows, but felt right. As we prepared, he pulled me aside, his voice low. Whatever happens out there, Kale, I need you to know I am all in. For you. I didn't respond, but his words lit a fire in me, one that carried me through the chaos of the mission. We were closer than ever, not just as soldiers, but as something more, something worth fighting for. The Santa Cruz mission was a crucible, testing everything we were. The smuggler's compound was a fortress of steel and stone, nestled in the Redwood Hills, its defenses bristling with traps. Diego led with unwavering focus, but I felt his attention on me, a silent tether binding us through the chaos. We moved as one, our training and something deeper, trust, maybe love, guiding our steps. The battle was brutal. Bullets tore through the air. Explosions shook the ground, and the redwoods stood silent witness to our fight. I took point, slipping through shadows to disable the compound's power grid, while Diego covered me, his presence a shield against the storm. When a sniper's bullet grazed my shoulder, he was there, pulling me to safety, his hands steady but his eyes frantic. "You're hit," he said, his voice tight as he checked my wound. Blood seeped through my sleeve, but it was shallow, more sting than danger. "I'm fine," I said, meeting his gaze. "Keep moving." He nodded, but his hand lingered on my arm, a moment of connection amidst the violence. We pushed forward, taking the compound room by room, until the smugglers surrendered, their leader in cuffs. The vanguard had won, but the cost was heavy, wounded comrades, a shattered base, and a future uncertain. As we returned to San Francisco, the weight of it all settled over us. Diego and I hadn't spoken about his confession, but it hung between us, a truth we couldn't ignore. That night, he found me at the pier again, the same place where everything had started to shift. The city was quiet, the fog curling around us like a cocoon. "Kale," he said, his voice soft but steady. I meant what I said. "I'm all in. But I need to know, are you?" I looked at him, really looked at him, the man who'd broken me, chased me, fought for me. His eyes were open, vulnerable, no longer the commander, but just Diego, a man who'd laid himself bare. My heart ached, torn between fear and hope, but I knew my answer. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I want this. I want us." He closed the distance, his hand finding mine, warm and sure. "Then we'll figure it out. Together." We stood there, hand in hand, the ocean stretching out before us, vast and endless. The vanguard's rules loomed, a shadow over our future. But in that moment, it didn't matter. We'd face the consequences, the whispers, the risks, because what we had was worth it. Days later, the squad gathered for a debrief, the air heavy with the weight of our losses and victories. Diego stood before us, his commander's mask firmly in place, but his eyes found mine, a silent promise. Lena, ever observant, gave me a nod, her way of saying she had my back. The vanguard was our family, flawed and fierce, and somehow, we'd carve out a place for us. Diego and I didn't flaunt what we were building. We moved carefully, stealing moments in the quiet of dawn or the shadow of the pier. But the squad knew, and slowly, they accepted it, not because it was easy, but because they saw the truth: we were stronger together. Months later, as we stood on a cliffside overlooking the Pacific, the sunset painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Diego took my hand. "I was wrong about you, Kale," he said, his voice steady. "You're not just cut out for this. You're the best of us." I smiled, my heart full. "And you're not so bad yourself, Commander." We laughed, the sound carrying over the waves, a testament to a love that had fought through rejection, fear, and fire to find its place. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was ours, and that was enough.